pia inafaa ikuwe live. name is Yemi Sachs.
Spiroach Beats.
Biggie, biggie, heavy, heavy, baby, woman. Biggie, biggie, heavy, heavy, baby, woman.
Good afternoon. Oh, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Excellencies, Ministers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon again. It is a great honor for Kenya to host this important side event. And I thank all the colleagues who have made this time to attend this session. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, Ministers who are here, we are here at a critical moment. The world is looking at UNEP 7 to deliver a turning point in the fight against plastic pollution and give directions on the realization of the historic Resolution 514 of the UNEP 5. Our team today, which is a side event hosted by the government of Kenya, led by our minister, bridging divides, building consensus. We all recognize the urgency. We also know the challenges, differing national circumstances, economic priorities, and scientific perspectives. But consensus is not uniformity. It is finding common ground for our common good. And therefore, several critical questions will remain unanswered. Which text will guide the next phase of negotiations? How will we secure funding for a resumed session? And what is the scope of the treaty, and where should INC 5.3 take place? And I presume that has already been provided. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, Ministers, we should not overlook the meaningful progress made, even on some of the most difficult issues. This progress reassures us that a successful outcome is still within our reach. And to avoid repeating the past setbacks, we now must concentrate on shaping a clear and credible work plan for the interim period, one that resolves outstanding issues and rebuilds the trust necessary for a breakthrough. And therefore, this session brings together voices from across the board. Our goal is not only to reiterate the positions, but to explore the pathways, how we align on core applications, financing, and just transition, and to secure a treaty that is both ambitious and inclusive. Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, let's focus on how. How do we bridge the gaps? How do we craft an agreement that is equitable, effective, and leaves no one behind? We are nearing a global plastics treaty. Let us not allow this historic chance to slip away. Instead, let's focus our collective energy on completing the work ahead. And today offers an important opportunity to advance those discussions. And to kick off this session, it is my great honor, distinguished pleasure to invite the Honorable Dr. Deborah Barasa, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry of the Republic of Kenya, to give introductory remarks and to moderate the next high-level segment. Thank you so much and welcome, Mr. Minister.
Thank you. Excellencies, Ministers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, PS, for setting the stage for this important dialogue. And thank you also, colleagues, for joining us for this important event. As the Master of Ceremony noted in his welcoming remarks, the world is confronting a crisis, one created by humankind and one that can only humankind has the capacity to end. While previous efforts have yielded progress, they have also revealed significant challenges. Yet with every passing day, the threat that plastic pollution poses to human health and the environment continues to grow. The world cannot afford further delay. We need urgent, decisive action from all governments. Plastic pollution has reached a critical point, endangering ecosystems, human health, and sustainable development worldwide. In 2022, UNEP Resolution 514 set in motion a historic effort to develop a legally binding global treaty that addresses the full life cycle of plastics. While the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee has made meaningful progress across 6 sessions, key differences persist on issues such as scope, financing, and chemicals of concerns. This high-level side event at UNEA 7 renews political momentum at a pivotal moment, returning the conversation to Nairobi, the birthplace of the treaty mandate. It offers an important opportunity to reflect on progress, confront areas of divergence, and chart practical pathways towards convergence ahead of the next round of negotiations. Aligned with the UNEA 7 theme of advancing sustainable solutions for a resilient planet, the event underscores that an ambitious treaty must go beyond waste management to fundamentally transform the plastic economy. Innovation, reduction, redesign, and circularity are essential for creating jobs, protecting livelihoods, and promoting environmental justice. Though ministerial leadership, technical insight, and inclusive discussions and political goodwill, as demonstrated by His Excellency, the President of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, on the need for inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development during the high-level opening segment today. This session aims to help bridge divides and demonstrate that multilateralism can deliver a meaningful, effective plastic treaty capable of meeting the urgency of the global crisis. With that resolve, I wish all of us fruitful discussions today. I welcome all our panelists and participants to this session and appreciate your presence here today. This panel will explore possible common grounds and practical pathways to overcome the obstacle we face in concluding a legally binding global plastic. We will reflect on the scope, chemicals of concern, supply, demand, and design and finance to bridge the divide and build consensus. And so I now invite our distinguished panelists for the high-level discussion for a 5-minute statement in the following order. Her Excellency Ambassador Rio Nakamura, Assistant Minister, Director General for Global Affairs of Japan. Your Excellency Dr. Benedette Arakwiye, Minister for Environment of Rwanda. Your Excellency Ms. Roy John Manjang, Minister for the Environment, Climate Change, and Natural Resources of Gambia. And Ms. Nagnoma Kone, GGGI, Country Representative, Kenya. Thank you to our panelists for those invaluable. Okay, I think we will proceed to invite the panelists for discussions of a 5-minute statement. We'll follow in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Cabinet Secretary. I'm Rio Nakamura, Assistant Minister from the Government of Japan. I thank the Government of Kenya for hosting this very important side event, and thank you very much for having me here. I strongly support the purpose of this event, bridging divides, building consensus. This is what we need right now. But how can we bridge the gap between countries' position and build consensus? One thing for sure is we must learn from the lessons learned from previous INC sessions, processes. First, we must deepen dialogue and build trust or nurture trust among groups with different views. To be very, very honest, I think this was a bit insufficient up until INC 5.2. We needed much, much more dialogues. Japan itself has engaged in dialogue with various groups, including both proponents, supporters, and those who were very cautious, the like-minded groups, countries, and so on. Based on this experience, we have made efforts to bridge the gap between countries with different positions, especially also at INC 5.2, including informal meetings on the former Article 6 and co-chairing an informal meeting together with Ambassador Julio Cordano of Chile for package discussions. However, all of us know there was not enough time left. Between now and INC 5.4, the forum for full-scale negotiations, I suppose, such multi-layered dialogue among member countries should be held. And Japan is also considering leading an informal small group meeting in Tokyo, like the one held on the final day with me and with Ambassador Cordano. Second, fundamental differences of opinion regarding the scope of the treaty must be resolved before we enter into the real negotiations of the text. Basically, all countries are committed to the need to, I quote, address the full life cycle of plastics, unquote, in order to combat plastic pollution. This is what we have decided at the UNEP Resolution 514. However, as is well known, fundamental differences of opinion have been persisting, including over whether production should be included. One factor behind this is obviously the mix of countries that view the treaty from an environmental perspective and those that view it rather from industrial or energy perspective. Of course, there are countries who are having both sides. This fundamental difference of positions must be kind of amalgamated into one common endeavor. And that must be done soon. And across groups to determine a direction. To that end, the informal small group meetings I mentioned earlier, as well as open-ended, face-to-face heads of delegation meetings are both important. In these discussions, each country must demonstrate maximum flexibility and shift to realistic, pragmatic negotiations aimed at reaching really an agreement. Japan is firmly committed to continuing our efforts in bridging the gaps between the countries and seeking for common grounds in order to realize an effective and progressive legal instrument. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Excellencies, fellow ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to also begin by thanking the government of Kenya for hosting this important discussion here in Nairobi, where the Plastics Treaty mandate was born. Plastic pollution is a crisis that transcends borders. It affects our ecosystems, our health, and our economies. Rwanda remains firmly committed to multilateralism because we can only solve such problems through collective action. While progress in the negotiations has slowed, ambition has not faded. Around the world, countries are taking bold national steps to reduce plastic pollution. And these efforts are demonstrating what is possible, and they are building the practical foundation a global plastics treaty will need to succeed. And in this way, national action and global ambition reinforce one another, reminding us that while we urgently need a strong treaty, we do not have to wait to begin driving change. So as we look to INC 5.3, Rwanda seeks a treaty that is both balanced and effective while ensuring that no one is left behind. We must build on the progress achieved so far and also learn from where we have fallen short. Building bridges without compromising ambition is essential. And mobilizing every resource and every skill set is also critical to achieve a successful treaty negotiation. This burden cannot rest on the new chair alone. This is the moment for all of us to be innovative in our diplomacy, in our coordination, and in refining our methods so that we strengthen, not stall, the process. We have an opportunity to create something historic, a treaty that protects our planet, advances equity, and delivers hope for future generations. Let us seize that opportunity together. I thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. Madam Minister, I wish to use this opportunity to say happy independence and also thank you for taking the lead to take us through this. I think it's very important that we are having this UNEP 7 here in Rwanda, Kenya, but also it's timely because Rwanda was the one that spoke before me. And then we are now celebrating a moment that is of independence, but also to liberate us from climate crisis. I think the time is definitely calculated. On the team, bridging devices and then building consensus, I think it's very, very important. But allow me to take you through the Gambia's own case. For the Gambia, we are struggling. It's a small economy. We are not having any factory that is manufacturing plastics, but we are bearing the brunt of this crisis. 2021, reports indicated that the Gambia is having nothing less than 20,000 tons of plastic waste. This is equivalent to around 23 ship. That is definitely big, maybe to some countries, but to the Gambia's size is very big. And more than 70% of this all find its way to our land, the beautiful land and our sea. This is indeed a crisis. But we are not only allowing the data to be there for the records, but we are also maximizing, and the political will is leading. 2007, we had an anti-litter regulations to manage matters related to illegal littering, among others, and also waste management. But this is not also doing well. In 2020 and 2015, we had the plastic ban also. But yet still, I will tell you how we are struggling with this. The Gambia is surrounded by other countries, and then we are not manufacturing. And then if we are not joined by the external wall to maintain these powers of political will, we will not succeed. And that is exactly what we are seeing. I think what we need for this team is global solidarity. And this is where Kenya is leading. I keep saying, when we sit as a team, when we sit as countries at the international arena, it's important that we put profit at the back of it. And then now we think of how do we leverage on providing solution to the only planet that we all share together. Usually we see the defense team being the producers. And this is where we need to also see how best we can emphasize and solidify our consultations. We need to also make sure that we are able to put clearly the message, but more strongly, political will, that we don't need only finance. The money is important, but imagine money without your health. What are you going to do that money with? Imagine money without a very healthy planet. What are you going to use that money for? Imagine money that you leave behind for a generation that has been destroyed. What are you going to use that money for? So it's important that we look at this holistically, understanding that, yes, the producers are making money, but the world is at stake, including their lives. So we need to look at how best we can have a smooth transition to this. We understand that they also have their rights. You cannot build your business with such kinds of investment, and you are asked to close overnight. But again, that transition needs to be designed holistically with a very, very strong leadership and political will. This is what we need, Honorable Minister and Excellencies here present. We need to catch up with time. A lot has been written, a lot has been said, but we need to catch up with time. And plastic is not only affecting only the environment, it's now even in our DNAs, it's now in our system, it's in our bloods. So we are not going anywhere close to solution if we are not ready to take the bold step to address this solution holistically. On that note, I say that let's put our foot down, hold on to the solution, and the solution is to bridge the gap between national political will and international willingness to accelerate the solution. And the solution is to make sure that we empower the treaty and get it into work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just like all the other panelists, I think it's an honor for all of us to be here today, and thank you so much for chairing this session. I think one of the things we need to take into account is that plastic pollution has moved beyond just an environmental issue. It is now a development issue, as well as a public concern, equally an industrial challenge, and increasingly a question of fairness and opportunity. When you have such an issue in place, it means that we need bold solutions, but it also means that we need partnerships and resources in order to solve this. And that means that globally, as well as regionally here in Africa, we cannot afford to have a dreadlock. So what does that mean for us? When you look at the fact that there is a standstill in regards to plastic negotiation, a lot of the times you can actually assume that this is a political difference. But in reality, when you hear and you listen to the voices of the people, especially in the global south, you know that it is about finding solutions. Because the voices actually tell us, if you listen carefully, that ambition is possible, but ambition has to be merged and equally parallel to what we call flexibility and fairness. So in order to move from point A to B, there has to be processes in place, but there has to be also feasibilities to make these things happen. And without that, of course, without clarity, you will have a deadlock. And the economics actually support that. When you look at the economies of scales, specifically on plastics, for every $1 that is invested in the recycling of plastics, you have about $7 that is in return in regards to the human health, environmental conservation, and as well as reduction of pollution globally, such as reductions of floods. So that means that when you're looking at plastics, we have to be cognizant that we cannot just focus on the downstream, which is just waste, but also focus on the upstream level. So what does that mean for us? It means that when we consider all things in play and we consider also the economies of scales of plastics and take into account, especially for the global south, that economies are important, development is important, but also how do we ensure that plastics can be merged into the political framework, the economic fabrics of societies. In Africa, in general, statistically, it has been mentioned that 700,000 green jobs can be created if we can move from this gridlock. So this actually shows you not only the importance, but also the relevance, but more importantly, the role that we all play, especially when it comes to policy, governance, and also traceability. So what do we need? I think that moving forward, all the panelists here have provided all the challenges that we face. But I think that, and they've also provided solutions, but moving forward to INC 5.3, one thing that we need is, for example, global rules that set ambitions. It's not just about having amazing dialogues, but we need to set in place rules and regulations that provide key directions and roadmaps within which we can all follow. And this is the guidelines that have been able to frame the Paris Agreement, the Montreal, and all the other conventions. So it means when it comes to plastics, we cannot use another alternative, but actually based on what has been the best practices to move forward. So earlier I was discussing with a colleague in regards to the chemical concerns that is linked to plastics. And a lot of the time, this is also one of the reasons why we are having challenges, And that regards to the fact that when you look at plastics, it is something that needs to take a forefront in every dialogue. It is something, a lot of the plastics we have, at least 13,000 chemicals of it. It is a cocktail of chemicals. It's not just something simple. And as a cocktail of chemicals, that has been statistically proven that about 3,000 of those are hazardous and could be hazardous not only for the human population, but you're also looking at the microflora and fauna. So it does transcend economy, moving into biodiversity, but it also affects what is important to all of us, which is the human health. So to move forward, one thing that is needed is that beyond the global standards is also that we have to design standards. And this standard has to be, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it needs to start somewhere. And it starts with having clear guidelines that avoid fragmentations when you're talking about plastics. And these guidelines really do unlock a lot of potential. First, it's going to unlock economies of scale. It's going to reduce production and compliance costs, and of course, improve recyclability. But more importantly, moving beyond dialogue, we're looking at attracting investment, and these are actually needed to unlock capital. But for the context of the regional economies, it is also going to strengthen regional manufacturing across the global south. In regards to the Global Green Growth Institute, which is an intergovernmental organization that is actually based in Seoul, which is where the headquarters is, one of the things we do is how do we work collectively with countries to be able to develop roadmaps, strategies, policies, and also support them to be able to unlock finances in this. It's not just about policy. Policy has to match the finances. You actually need the tools and the resources to make this possible. So it is a parallel process, and this is what GGGI stands for, working together with our member countries in order to move the needle, at least help towards moving to tipping point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ministers, colleagues, for the insightful discussion. We've had invaluable insights from our panel of ministers and other senior officers. I would now like to open the floor for interventions. I kindly invite colleagues who wish to take the floor to share their reflections, whether on lessons learned from the INC process so far, or on how we can make the best use of the interim period to ensure success at a future INC. As you make your interventions, I encourage you to be concise and focused on concrete ways forward. This will enable us to hear from as many delegations as possible and maintain a dynamic and interactive discussion. The floor is now open.
Thank you so much. I'm Jyoti Mathur Philip, and the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. I would like to begin by saying a very big thank you to the government of Kenya for hosting this event, this very high-level event, and keeping the dialogue open on the plastics negotiations. I also at this point want to thank all the panelists for your very wise and sage views and ideas, and especially I keep hearing lessons learned. So I am very glad that that is something that is being said, and that a lot of progress has been made, and that we just need to make a little bit more progress, and we're very grateful for these sentiments. I also at this point want to say thank you to the government of Japan and Ambassador Nakamura on your government's initiative to continue the informal dialogues. I think that will lead to the unlocking of some of the difficult issues that we know are there, and we cannot shy away from that, but it's up to members to come to to do some discussions on that, and so we're very grateful. Thank you so much for keeping the momentum and the progress forward. From our side, from UNEP and from the INC Secretariat, we are, of course, as you know, organizing the next INC, the one-day INC, which will take place in Geneva on 7th of February, and for just election of officers, so will not be discussing anything substantive. We will be electing a chair as well as any vice chairs that may be needed, that may be changing. So again, thank you very much, and we are grateful for this very packed room of members and stakeholders, and for your continued commitment to the INC process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Jérôme Bellion-Jourdan, come from the world of diplomacy, so I'm mindful of the complexity of this and other negotiation processes. I'm now based in Geneva, working for the Institute for Global Negotiation, and lead an initiative, Global Negotiation Support, which might be helpful moving forward, because I think what we need, and the title of this event speaks to it, building bridges, building consensus. We need to that end, in our view, to do much work on process. And there's been much talk about process since Geneva. In our view, there are 3 levels where we stand ready to work with all states, and I insist with all states, with the incoming chair, with the Bureau. One is the setup, the interplay and the roles between the chair, the Bureau, the Secretariat. The other one is to be innovative, and I think the word was used, innovation, when it comes to negotiation formats. We are miles away from having exhausted the range of possibilities when it comes to formats and negotiation tools that can be mobilized. And the third level, and that's where I would seek also maybe your views, is maybe a change of mindset. I think what we may have seen over the past is much positional bargaining, red lines, and maybe moving towards integrative negotiation, and again, there are tools for that, would allow maybe to get us out of the situation that we have, to build that much needed consensus on a treaty on plastic pollution, and maybe to move away from what we have also seen, which is often a bit of a blame game. Blaming the chair, blaming the others, blaming the process. And I think there's much work there that ought to be done, and we stand ready as Institute for Global Negotiation to support all states, the Bureau, the incoming chair, and working obviously with the Secretariat in that direction to explore options moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your statements. I think it was our sister from Rwanda who may have left, who commented on the importance of building bridges without compromising ambition. My name is Lynn Jacobs. I'm with the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastics, so working very closely on this process for the last couple of years with our Indigenous relatives. The idea of not compromising ambition, for Indigenous peoples, that means as a basic minimum standard, including the rights of Indigenous peoples referenced in the text, in the treaty text. Indigenous peoples are impacted on the front lines from, and I think others have mentioned the upstream impacts as well, from the extraction of the fossil fuels on our territories, from the production, the refining of the fossil fuels, all the way through to use and fate in the natural environment. So my question is, how can we get to the place of building bridges without compromising those very basic needs of ensuring that the rights of Indigenous peoples are in the treaty text, along with our full and effective participation, our rights, our science and knowledge and practices as well, What would be your recommendations for moving forward and how we can have a greater impact within the negotiation process? Thank you.
Buenas tardes, soy de Chile. Voy a hablar lento y va a interpretar a alguien acá al lado mío. Soy de la Alianza Internacional de Recicladores a nivel global.
My name is Soledad Mella from Chile. I'm from the International Alliance of Waste Pickers.
Y vemos con mucha preocupación sobre el tema de la transición justa, que dice que nadie va a quedar atrás.
And we are very worried for the just transition because it says that no one's going to left behind.
Pero durante estos días hemos visto que no se ha mencionado ni a los pueblos indígenas, ni las comunidades afectadas, ni los niños, ni los jóvenes, ni los recicladores de base.
But in this discussion, we've been seeing that the indigenous people, the waste pickers, the youth and children weren't mentioned.
Tampoco se mencionan a las mujeres. Y nos preocupa que tengan que venir niños menores de edad y jóvenes a darnos una alerta urgente de hacernos cargo de algo que hemos dilatado durante tanto tiempo.
Neither the women were mentioned. We are worried that we see young children here and having to give speeches in order to alert us from something that we also know.
Niños y jóvenes que deberían estar en sus casas sin preocupaciones, hoy día están preocupados de qué van a heredar de este planeta y aún así nosotros todavía no nos ponemos de acuerdo y no avanzamos.
Kids that should be in their homes are here giving speeches, and even in that way we're not getting to conclusions together.
¿Realmente se va a garantizar que haya una transición justa donde nadie quede realmente atrás? ¿O solamente va a ser un discurso de todas nuestras delegaciones que cada vez van cambiando más y más las decisiones sin tomar en cuenta a la sociedad civil y a las verdaderas comunidades afectadas?
Is there really going to be an agreement in which civil society can be heard, or is it just going to stay in speeches and nice discourses?
Hacemos un llamado urgente. No hay tiempo. Estos niños, estos jóvenes que deberían estar en su casa, hoy están aquí, preocupados, sin dormir, pensando en qué realmente van a heredar. Y es una responsabilidad de nuestros delegados de naciones y de nosotros como sociedad civil y adultos, entregarles la paz que ellos necesitan. Gracias.
We make an urgent call because we see these young children here worried without sleeping, without being able to enjoy their lives, and we cannot get to an agreement together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Zara. I'm 16 years old, and my brother here today is 15. And we were two of only 6 under-18s to have attended any of the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations, representing the generations yet to come who will have to deal with the consequences of this treaty's decisions. And as the under-18s, we have been bringing the statement of some of the key things that should be brought to the Global Plastics Treaty. We believe that a treaty should include wording on the production side of plastics, the chemicals of concern impacting our health as the future generations, and financing to make sure that implementation is possible. And yet, these 3 key things seem to be on the fence. And it seems like with consensus, it may be difficult to reach these things in time. It seems essential that a treaty is created, not only with ambition, but now. We cannot wait, because in the future, it will be so much harder for my generation and the ones to come to deal with this, with a much greater plastic pollution problem. And so, even though consensus seems like an ideality, is our planet and the well-being of the future generations really what we're willing to give in order to reach consensus? Is consensus really more valuable than my generation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, participants, I'm with the Bangladesh delegations. I would like to say that the Global Plastic Treaty is our best chance to turn fragmented national efforts into a coherent, enforceable system. So we have already delayed, so we look forward to move forward and regulate the plastic production, toxic adhesive, and just transition for the worker and the communities. And it is our duty to move forward and build our planet livable for our future generation. So our appeal is to all of you, come forward, move together for a legally binding treaty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Excellencies. We really appreciate the leadership of the government of Kenya. Thank you, ministers, ambassadors. It was a really good panel, very good exchange. My name is Valentina Sierra. I'm from Uruguay, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I'm also the GRULA coordinator for the INC process. And I would like to deliver this intervention on behalf of Uruguay. First of all, I have to echo and support many of the interventions that were just said. We consider that we need urgent action. This is a crisis. The plastic pollution is a crisis that not only affects the environment, but also human health, and especially vulnerable communities, communities that are in vulnerable situations. So we really need to address this issue as soon as possible. We need to have a just transition. We need to make sure that we will make that happen, and that we will take into account the waste pickers and the informal workers as real actors of this. Also, we would like to note and thank Japan deeply for this engagement on continue also on informal dialogues. We consider that it's critical that we continue building bridges. We need to have everyone on board. We need to have a better understanding. And I think in Geneva, we left the conversations. Also, we were shaping kind of a package deal. So we need to continue these conversations, to continue engaging and making sure that we will fulfill the resolution 5/14. We need to address the plastic crisis with a full life cycle approach, with a legally binding agreement. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, for your comments. My name is Jamal Ajin. I'm from Break Free from Plastic US. I'm representing my organization as well as the Afro-descended community of Detroit, Michigan. I wanted to extend appreciation for your mention of chemicals and the need for including chemicals in the Plastics Treaty. I know we've heard some rather dubious arguments in the course of these negotiations about where the mandate for covering plastic chemicals should specifically live. A lot has been discussed around the International Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution as being where this should addressed, and other arguments about it already being addressed in the Stockholm Convention and the Basel Convention. But I think, as we all know in this room, there are over 16,000 chemicals in plastics, and they are adversely impacting communities like mine. So I think my question is very simple. How can we ensure that there is a unique mandate for covering plastic chemicals in this treaty, and that the great proposals that are put forward by countries to regulate chemicals at the source are preserved? Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished guests. My name is Faith Ngige from Kenya, the Pan-Africa Climate Justice Alliance. And I'd like to reiterate the significance of extended producer responsibility, not as a voluntary option in the treaty, but it should be central to it. It should not be seen as a hindrance to responsibility, but a pathway for innovation, creativity, and efficiency. So it is our submission that extended producer responsibility obligations will also create avenues for integrating everyone in the value chain, including the actors, those also in the downstream. It creates an opportunity to be able to bring in both the global north and the global south, and also just to create a framework through which the plastic is managed across the value chain. Therefore, we implore upon everyone involved in developing the treaty to ensure that extended producer responsibility remains central and not voluntary. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellencies and colleagues, for these rich perspectives. The interventions from the floor have added real value to our deliberations, and they will help guide us as we prepare for the next phase of negotiation. As we conclude this important discussion, I would like to highlight a few reflections from our exchange today. But before that, I would like to invite each of the panelists for just 1 minute to share their reflections before we close.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for all your comments. I really share the view that we must urgently finalize our agreement. And in order to do that, Japan is taking a very pragmatic, realistic approach. We need to have all countries on board. We need to have, of course, as ambitious as possible, the treaty. But we need also to be realistic to get all countries so that we have an effective instrument. And that's really difficult. But at the same time, we are aware of all these aspects you have just mentioned. Production, chemicals, the youth, the indigenous people. So what we are going to do right now is to have frank, candid, deep discussions. What are really acceptable? What is really needed? And so we will make efforts and we will have really deep discussions so that we would be able to include as much as possible of the agendas you have just shown in order to secure our children or grandchildren a better world. I myself have also children, and I'm really aware of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Minister, for the leadership. And thank you also, Japan, for supporting to make sure that this subject doesn't fail the future generations. And I am happy to see our under 16 taking the floor to give us the assurance that they are with us, but we don't also have to fail them. And I think the solution is very close. What we need is a comprehensive but all-inclusive negotiation that will not solve the red lines. All the red lines that we have seen, some of them are not science-based. So in as much as just taking from Ambassador, the discussions need to be very frank. And it can only be frank if we have a very strong base, and the base cannot deviate from science. So we need to make sure that all that we are saying reflects to the reality of what has been proven. So then we can start a frank and genuine discussions. But again, the political will must be there. As I said initially, we need to understand that individually, we cannot tackle this. We need solidarity at the global stage. We need to agree as a team, and we need all hands on deck, not because individually we are affected differently, but because we are living on one planet that is home to all of us together. I wish the planet has doors to close. So we will allow it to close, like the Gambia will close ours, and allow those that pollute take the chances to suffer. But that's not the case. So therefore, let's join hands on deck and understanding that time is no more on our side. And we need actions. We need to agree. The red lines are too much, and not all of them are genuine. We have to be very frank. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm not going to repeat what the great panelists here have already mentioned. And again, thank you so much to Japan and, of course, the government of Kenya. I'm going to go back to a little bit of tradition here and just give a quote from Chinua Achebe, because we have the youths here. That's one of the books I read when I was young, which is when elders sit together under the shade of a shared purpose, the village finds its direction. And today our shared purpose is unmistakable with all the comments that you've made here today and the suggestions. And I want you to know, as GGGI, we hear you. We hear you very well. And what we always do is listen not only to our governments, who are our key beneficiaries, but to the partners and to the communities. And with that, we always aim to take those comments on board and improve how we provide service delivery. So today, with everything we've seen and heard, it is unmistakable that to shape plastic's future, we need to support health. And health drives innovation and green jobs. You'll probably wonder, how is plastic driving all that? Because they're all linked. You cannot decouple them. And once we know that there is no one without the other, we have no option but to stand in solidarity. And this means communities, all of us have a responsibility to play. Unfortunately, not just the government or the private sector or the investors. We all have a responsibility to play. We all have a responsibility to recycle and to reuse. And perhaps today when we go home and we all have the mindset of how can I recycle the plastics, that will be the beginning of all of us having what we call shared responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you. The outcomes of INC 5.2 give us real reasons for hope. We have seen meaningful progress and commendable flexibility from countries, even on difficult issues. At the same time, uncertainties remain, particularly regarding the negotiating text, funding for a resumed session, and clarity on when and where INC 5.3 will take place. These matters require timely attention. Looking ahead, the coming months are crucial. We must use this period wisely through informal talks, bilateral engagements, and strong regional dialogue. Building trust now will allow us to focus on concluding our work at INC 5.3 rather than revisiting earlier debates. Let me reaffirm Kenya's full commitment to supporting this process. We remain ready to work collaboratively with all of you to find solutions, build consensus, and deliver the ambition needed to meet UNEA's mandate. We are close to a historic agreement. Let us seize this opportunity so that the next round of negotiations delivers the breakthrough the world is waiting for, as well as the generations to come. Together, we can turn our shared commitments into meaningful action. Let us move forward with determination and unity to bring these negotiations to a strong and lasting conclusion. Thank you, and thank you very much for your time, as well as for the panelists. Now, I invite you, Excellencies, present for a high-level family photo right here. Thank you so much.
Before you leave, kindly please, I have an announcement, so let the photo be taken fast so that I give you a very good announcement. Kindly. Thank you, our Cabinet Secretary. Thank you, Honorable Ministers and Delegates. As the President mentioned this morning, that we want to make a treat to you, that you sample the magical Kenya. And therefore, the onset, at the courtesy of our Minister, we invite you to pick the Forgers route right outside here for your lunches. And also, our Cabinet Secretary will be hosting you at 6:30 p.m. for a cocktail, courtesy of the Government of Kenya through our Cabinet Secretary. Asanteni sana, and treat yourself well. Wish you all the very best and enjoy your lunch. Asante.